right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Strawberry Hill Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Simmons, and we are filming in the great location of this Shop Cigar Lounge. Personally, I love it, and there's many reasons why. Yes. Today, we have my good friend, TJ Roberts from Kinship Cafe. That's right down the street from us, and a place that I tend to visit quite often. And just, it's great. It's great. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that you guys like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share our stuff whenever you see it on. And please follow us. And thank you for everybody that's been following us. It's been a great adventure. And here we are on episode 5, 6, 7, whatever. We're somewhere over there. Yeah. So today we're going to be really talking about TJ and about business, about opening up and the struggles and the fun and the joy and the laughing and crying and everything that goes along with it. Yeah, I know. But so, like I said, this is my good friend TJ, and he owns Kinship Cafe. So let's get started, man. So
yeah, man.
TJ,
well, thank you so much for having me
Of course.
It's a pleasure. You know, when I heard that you were getting started on a podcast, it's something that I've been wanting to do, but you beat me to it, and you're doing a great job with it because you're featuring so many people in our community that, you know, make a big difference for other people, are very selfless leaders. So I saw you had Ray and some other people on, and I think you have Martin on too from next door.
Oh, he's coming on. Okay. Trying to get him on.
He's a busy guy.
He's a really busy guy. I've known Martin for a while.
He's good.
Martin, time is ticking. You better get on there.
Yes. But yeah, so happy to be on and thankful to be here. But yeah, this is honestly the first time I've been in your space, and wow, the pictures, the music,
don't do it justice,
the smell, it's hard to capture. I mean, this is like, you know, shop talk, right? So how do you even envision or capture these energies? Because I have the same problem at Kinship where we try to capture that energy, or that, you know, like we're a small space, but when people come in, they're like, wow, there's so much here. You know, how do you capture all of this?
Man, it's all in my head. I just got to get it out of my head and on here. No, I mean, what I tell people, I wanted to make this welcoming from everybody, and I'm glad that you feel welcome. Yeah,
man, and I sentiment to that note, because that's a big focus. When you walk into Kinship, there's a sign that when you walk in, it says all are welcome. Having, you know, being where we are, where we're so close to, both of us are so close to, you know, some of the major city, like government buildings, you know, you're going to see people from paying their tags to seeing people who are with the city doing development deals with the city, et cetera. So the sparse of, you know, demographic of who we serve at Kinship is very vast, certain to yours. But I think for us, like, all are welcome, or having a space where people feel at home, people feel like, you know, this is more like sitting at a dining table type, you know, we can have a conversation. Those are important. I think people connect over coffee a lot of times. So you want to have like a very casual, feng shui, vibey type space. So at Kinship, there's lots of greenery with plants, and there's lots of African-American art. There's also like businesses that we kind of bring on to help kind of give them recognition for their hustle. So we have different businesses represented in our space that people can frequent and shop. And the businesses are all people that, you know, we build a relationship with, but also are people that we find like in this different echelon of dopeness, because they make it themselves. You know, it's not something that they go to somebody else to have made. So you're kind of finding that creative or that creator that you want to like support, and then you try to foster those relationships when customers come in to say, hey, check this out, check these guys out, you know, look at that. So at Kinship, there's like kind of like a charcuterie board of
charcuterie board.
Yeah, we're gonna say that because there's such a variety of things that you see when you walk in, but capturing the space, man, it's so hard.
So I mean, I'm glad we're getting right into it. So tell me, what's the main difference between your shop and a lot of other coffee shops? Because there's so many around.
There's a lot, and there are a lot of good ones.
Yeah, and then I will say before we keep going, I don't drink coffee. I don't. And you're one of the only places I go to get coffee. I don't know what's in here, the cinnamon delight.
Yeah.
If y'all are not coffee drinkers and you like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I don't know what it is. This is like the best thing in the world. And I come down at least once a week to get one.
At least.
And I don't drink coffee, but I will go to Kinship and get me a large cinnamon delight. Yes. That is one more plug for you.
Yes.
I love this stuff.
No, and I appreciate that. I mean, to be honest, man, we hear that a lot from people, especially from people from color. They have not been to Starbucks, or they don't feel welcome in Starbucks, or they don't feel like they have the money. Whether they don't feel a part or don't fit in, they're not used to coffee. And so when we get to like kind of control the pace a little bit, and then we have autonomy over the price, and then we have autonomy over the environment, well, now like everybody feels a little bit more welcomed. We hear that phrase, never really had coffee before, never been a big coffee drinker before. And usually by the time they're on their way out of our shop, they're halfway through that cup of coffee, and they're like saying the same thing. So that means a lot, Mike. I appreciate that. But I think the thing that makes us different than most shops is just kind of like how we try to be really transparent with how we operate. I think it's like hard because like in our cultures, we have a different, thicker skin than maybe most people that would walk into a coffee shop, you know? And so when I say like, what you see is what you get, some people are like, oh, and you're like, no, like for real, like what you see is what you get. Like we have a display of baked goods. What you see inside is what you have. All of our food items, sometimes we have them in stock, sometimes we don't. And it's more so just because it's all on me, really making all the food and the coffee and the, things. So, trying to extend myself past what I'm capable of is not really what I'm wanting to do with Kinship.
Get you on that.
And so, with what we know and what we are good at, that's what we stay at, And so, when people come in and they're like maybe used to other places, some of the things that kind of peak out or will be the same is like we can do pour overs, we can do lattes, cappuccinos, different things like that. We do get asked often about having like a frappuccino, like frozen, like type beverage, but I haven't decided to like not hear ever again, because you get a blender, that's basically all you hear after a while working around one. So we have some of the similarities in our menu items, but I think the thing that makes us different is we do make everything from scratch. We do roast our own coffee, which I know a lot of shops talk about roasting their own coffee. Some actually do, and some really just say they do, but they pay someone else to like do it for them. So that's a roundabout way of saying it, I guess. But yeah, we make our food from scratch. So we have like wrap items and then deli items that we offer that are from scratch, and they're all like locally sourced items that we bring ingredients in from, farmers to different places here in the metro. And then on the preparation side, we really focus on the intentionality of like what we're putting in, right? So we're like I said, so close to government building, and then you and many other business owners, as well as like the schools. So I think about how I want to fuel you guys and how I want you guys to, come in and have this expectation of what to get. So we think about that. So we don't do pork and we don't do soy. And those are just like two very not like top of knowledge, like these are not that great to eat on your stomach type things.
Well, then a lot of people also don't know, but just to let y'all know, a lot of black people don't eat pork.
Yes. Yes.
So, just FYI.
Yeah. And
I don't eat a lot of pork. It's just a normal thing that we've grown up with.
Yeah. It's just something. And I think it's just kind of with the sentiment of KC barbecue, that lay on of like, oh, you should just be good. Not everybody is good with pork. So we just really try to, be intentional about that. And then everything we source is organic, and everything we source is like scratch made or from like, we just had honey delivered from a farmer here in Missouri. So like we really try to deliver like something that's authentic. We have a catchphrase. It's called like taste the kindness. Part of that is the way that we make all of our items. We do support like people locally, like Hana's Donuts from KCK. just a staple in our
awesome.
community with donuts and fritters and all the, I mean, man, it's terrible. When she delivers in the morning, it's terrible because I can't not.
Yeah, you got to at least have one.
Oh man, at least one.
One,
And if you close your
every
eyes,
hour.
if you close your eyes while you're eating, it doesn't count. So that's the other thing I've been
Those are
training.
invisible calories.
Working on it. So yeah, there's some differences there, but I think the biggest thing for us is, you know, the story of how we got started, and how we got to where we are. We are a very proud, loud, Black, unapologetic, owned, operated business. That goes a lot with just more so not necessarily saying, oh, well, just the shade of color, that's the difference, but really the distance we had to travel to get to where we are today. And then really like we've gotten, you know, some great credentials from like the Kansas City Star and the Kansas City Business Journal and some other PR recognizable like
It's
firms.
like every other month you on the news like a damn local celebrity.
It
Look
doesn't-
at TJ do this thing.
It doesn't feel that way, but to be honest, like I think that's the sentiment to our story.
Yep.
I think that's the sentiment to that distance that we had to travel, because when we first opened, getting more into it, when we first opened, we didn't have all of our equipment because we opened.
I wanted to highlight that because I know that you didn't have an espresso machine, right?
Yeah,
for
the
6
drink
months?
that you get, we wouldn't have been able to make it physically until 6 months after.
So what did you do for that first 6 months?
Oh man, gutted it.
You were just like, hey, we ain't got it.
Yeah, honestly, we weren't promoting those things because we didn't want to falsely promote. Also, like we have another coffee shop down the street from us here, Split Log Coffee. They're great too, but when you're like getting started, you don't want to like promote something that you can't do and then tell everyone to go down the street to get it. So that was like, the first 6 months we didn't have a sign. We didn't have any employees.
Yeah, it was just you.
It was just me. We didn't have our espresso machine. And so we were solely living on like drip coffee. It was just like your black coffee and some cream. We had cold brew, and then we had iced chais, and that was during October to February, y'all. So cold months don't really do great with cold drinks.
Nope.
So, in that process, we didn't, there was no way to expedite a lot of those things. We were waiting on a machine that was stuck in the Canal of Panama coming from Spain.
yeah.
So we were
The whole
just
like shipment containers that got stuck.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When that happened, like something came in, my testes just came inside. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible. And I was trying to really get updates on everything. And honestly, the updates were coming and they just weren't good. And I was like, just stop telling me this is already bad. So we didn't really have a choice. And so, you just gut it, and you try to, with you running everything yourself, you try to like look at expenses. You try to really factor in what's coming in to what's coming out. At that time, we were spending a lot of money getting started, which you
I
can
feel you on
understand,
that.
right?
I think the first time I saw how much I was spending every
it's
month, I'm like,
scary.
I didn't even know I made that much.
And it's
But
like
how am I
scary to even
spending that
know
much?
how you could even spend. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know I could spend money like that. So there was like some of that sentiment at first, but I think like our first 6 months, like, major events happened. Like, I got evicted from my home personally, just so we could stay open. And my family, my mom was going through a lot of mental health stuff at the time, and like all that to say, like I think those are like times when you're like super challenged, right? And you maybe are trying to do something really, really good or dope in your life or in your community. And, there's going to be those energies and those forces that are like going to obviously weigh you down and prevent you from wanting to achieve your goal. And so I feel like that was a large part of that, where I was going through a lot of that, asking myself, is this really wise to do? Should I keep going? Why am I still doing this? This is like borderline unhealthy and kind of painful personally to go through. But at the same time, it was like, well, if I'm not creating this like these things to happen to me, and these are things that aren't in my control, then could it be that on the other side of what these obstacles are, could there be like so much greatness I couldn't really even fathom,
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I'm so glad I had that thought process, because I mean, I still look at this journey and go, how the heck did this happen?
Oh yeah.
How are we here? And you know, we just celebrated 2 years.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
It is
Congrats,
really
man.
cool. Yeah. So it's like, it's, you know, from start to finish, like it's been like, I think we were talking earlier, you know, it feels like you've been here for forever, maybe 5 years. It feels that way too. But there's no remorse or regret or like, man, I should have done this different, or, you know, there's some of those that you get, but you know, hindsight's 2020 as a business owner and really as a person, and every step is just a learning step, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, from like, now we have, you know, 6 people on staff. Now I have an executive board that was like the godsend of saving me and Kinship, you know, was like getting older heads in the room to visually, you know, look over what we're doing and how we're doing it. You know, it's one thing for me to have the mindset of a 32-year-old to run a business, but to have like a 65 and a 63 and a 55-year-old tell me what they're seeing.
Through it before and kind of let you know.
Yeah. And also just like, you know, better expertise. You know, I'm at the shop open to close, so if I need like, you know, a signage permit from the city, how am I going to get that? So having some extra help around to do some things, run the stores, do things for me here and there is really helpful too. So it's been a beautiful journey.
So how did you get into coffee? So like, not really how did you get in? Well, that too. But how did you decide coffee is where I'm gonna go? Like open up my business.
That's a great question.
Because there's so many things that you could have done.
Many things. Yeah, you could go into roasting. You could do training. You could just do sales if you wanted to in coffee. There's lots of things that fall into it. And I will say, like, KC market is one of the best markets to try to find a job in coffee. There's like Roastery, Messenger, there's tons. So the city supports local coffee shops better than any other city in the United States. Actually, there was a study that was done in 2018 that actually confirmed this, where per capita, Kansas City actually supported the local mom and pop shop shares of coffee buying more so than they did the Starbucks and the Scooters and the Caribou. And that's just a testament to the community in the metro. But I would say, like, what got me really interested or infatuated, I would say now to this day, with coffee was like, when I was like 10, my dad's a pastor. So when when my dad was pastor, well, he still is a pastor. So when I was young, a lot of my early upbringing was all through the church, and I played music. So, I played drums in the church. And so when I was 10 years old and I got promoted to be the worship leader at the church, to lead worship with the team and stuff and play drums, since the team like drank coffee and I showed up early, my dad like taught me how to make Folgers on the system, you know? And so that's like for real how I started, was making coffee for my dad's church. And I wouldn't say it was so much like the taste, because I was like 10, 11 drinking coffee. That's kind of weird, but it was just on Sundays, y'all. But like
not every day, y'all.
Not every day. But when I was like serving coffee, and we go to like these breaks in church, when you have like this coffee break that every church kind of does, what I noticed was how, like, no matter the demographic, no matter the age, no matter the amount of money or difference of the amount of money, coffee was like that catalyst that everyone flocked around. Even if it was Folgers, Mike, they were jamming on it. And so, like, to me, like, that was like at 10, I remember that sticking in my head like a sore thumb. Like, that is so unique, because this guy and this guy have no relationship at all with each other. Their kids aren't the same age, yet like they're communicating and doing like life in quotations around this cup of coffee during this 5-10 minute break. That to me was like something that stuck with me. And then as I got older, I did some other things before I did coffee. I played college football at K-State and graduated from Kent State. And
EMAW, baby.
EMAW.
Yeah.
All day. And then I worked insurance. And when I was in insurance, I was in sales. and I was really good at it. I sold with AAA insurance, and I was like rookie of the year coming out of college. And then I went out and started my own practice with Farm Bureau Financial Services for like 6 years. And so as I was an insurance agent, all my meetings, like I said to the statistic back in 2020, I was one of those coffee drinkers. And so I was a regular at some of these local shops. And all of my meetings, if we were doing insurance, Mike, we were probably going to sit down at a coffee table somewhere. And I love doing that for a lot of different reasons. Even in my when I opened up my own practice in Mission, Kansas.
So you already kind of opened up your own business a little bit before.
Yeah. And when I opened that up in Mission, Kansas, we even put a coffee bar, like a slow coffee bar in our space. And a lot of my customers really loved coming into the shop, getting a great cup of coffee, that type of thing. But for me, like what I noticed when I was in these shops is like there was like a transparency. Like, first of all, like, insurance is very like white space ran, I don't know a CEO to this day that's black of an insurance company. I'll need to find one. And same with financial services or banking. And so working with Farm Bureau, I was the only African American that they had in 8 states, and there was 1,800 agents in that platform, like in that foot trap, in that space. And so for me, like I had a hard time having mentors. I had a hard time like leaning on anyone that like higher up. And I was really good at sales. I was rookie of the year, both of these companies, and I was a top 10 performer on the state of Kansas for many years. And so for me, like I had the skill set to sell, but as far as like running a business, being 24 years old at that time, hiring someone and making $170,000 their first year, like that's crazy, at that age.
$170,000 a year.
Yeah. So that was like
still hiring.
But that was like something that was like, for me at that age, I had to juggle a lot to learn like and fumble through a lot. And so for me in these coffee shops, I noticed like not seeing hardly anyone like look at me that like work behind the coffee bars. And then none of them were black owned. And then when I saw like, how you could order like a coffee from Guatemala or a coffee from like Ethiopia or something, you never really saw any of their culture outside of like that. It was on the bag and that was pretty much it. You didn't see people that looked like those people like serving the coffee. And so I saw like a whole opportunity where, I just saw like, we don't have space here. We definitely should occupy space here. There needs to be more equity for our people in this space. And it felt very similar to insurance. The only thing I was doing in insurance that was kind of unique was I was doing a lot of like community-based work. And that was something that like I wasn't getting satisfaction out of because I was doing it as an insurance agent. And as an insurance agent, I could basically gear up like once a quarter to really do something big and community driven. And it was well received by my clientele, but outside of my clientele, they were kind of like, why is an insurance agent like doing this? Because this kind of feels weird. And so for me, I was missing that community engagement factor. And like coffee, you get it every day.
Yep.
So now it's like overload. So like for me, it was like, okay, I see this opportunity. I don't see like a communal way of like having satisfaction in the work that I do. How do I put those two together? And at the time it was just going to be like, I'm going to run the insurance practice with my squad. I had a team that I employed there. And then I was going to hire out everybody at Kinship and we were just going to manage both businesses. But that changed when 3 days after I signed my lease with Kinship, that my company came in and we're like, we're laying off all these people because of COVID.
Oh, damn.
COVID. And we're gonna, your services are no longer needed. The long story short was there was a lot of back and forth between me and the higher ups about George Floyd and what was going on with some DEI stuff. And they basically were like, we don't want to keep having these conversations with you. And so it would be easier if you just weren't here.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so like under like the Kansas law, I can't like sue them or anything, it's like, it's all just kind of like hearsay stuff, but you already, I already knew what was going on when it happened. So like when that whole thing happened, at 3 days after you sign the lease, you're like, well, I hope this works out.
Yeah, I know.
So that's when it was just kind of like, well, my business plan that I'd like taken me like 3.5, 4 years to do, and all the money that I was like gonna like use to do this project is gone. So let's just throw it out and let's thank God I know coffee. And so before we opened, I worked at the roastery for about a year and a half, 2 years. And while I was there, I learned a lot about coffee. So I like, they taught me dang near everything I know.
So you worked at the roastery?
Yeah. So I was running an insurance practice. And then when I finished my business plan up and I was getting ready to go out and like look for spaces to start, I was like, well, I should probably know how to make a cup of coffee. That would like maybe be really important. If they call me and go, this is broke, what do I do? So Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Monday nights, I worked coffee because those were nights that my calendar was always usually slow. People didn't want to have insurance meetings on those days, rightfully so. And so I would spend that time with being a barista. And so, I've learned very quickly. I was really good at it. Learned very quickly that there's a lot of science, and I got my nerd side of my brain working. And so my nerd side like geeked out for a long time and has never stopped since. So that started in 2019. And then when it happened with the business insurance kind of going away, I was so glad. Like, you get those affirmations like sometimes afterwards, like, dang, good thing you didn't date her. You didn't go,
yeah.
You know what I mean? That was one of those things like, good thing you leaned on, your intuition to know this stuff. And I think I'm super lucky now for it,
Yeah. And I was about to say something like that because I was about to say kind of it's a blessing in disguise that you got laid off from the insurance company. Because I think if you're not fully invested in your business,
oh man,
it's hard for it to work out. So now you kind of got forced to fully invest in it.
Yeah, it didn't have right. Yeah. It didn't have a choice. And then you can think, we can all think of businesses top of mind where we know the owner's not involved.
Yeah.
And that wasn't one of those things that I wanted this to be. For me, like even when I was doing my business plan, I was going to be up here often, if not every day, helping with the shop and the operations. But the thing that like definitely made it more noticeable, and what I didn't realize that I know now, is that I needed to be involved the way that I was, because had we not, honestly, I don't think we'd be here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that part to me was like, it was very difficult. There's a lot of like what's that like, I wouldn't even say self-hate, but like just that like, I was relieved when the insurance company did what they did, just because I was tired of having the conversations as well. Mm-hmm. But I knew my worth. And then the second thing was like when the way it happened and how abrupt it was just gave what I was doing here way more validation. Like it gave me steam, it gave me momentum, even though it sounds like it was deflating. Yeah. It was very deflating. But then the next day I was like, let's go, and I had just signed the lease here. And if you're ever like needing business advice, I would just say, whoever's listening, when you go to sign your lease, sign it in the morning. Sign it in the morning. Don't wait till the afternoon.
Why do you say that?
Because, man, I thought so many times throughout the whole day, I was like, they're like, yeah, here's the agreements we're all agreeing upon. Here's the lease. How's it look? Looks great. Great. When do you want to sign? And I go like 3:00. And they're like, okay, great. And I remember that whole day, Mike, I'm like pacing my room. Yeah. I'm running, like I'm sweating, and then I'm freezing. I'm freaking out because I'm like internally like, is this the right decision? Yeah. Should I call him and tell him like we don't have a deal anymore? But then it was like at that point, right? You got to go, and this was something that like fell in our lap. So for me and Kinship, it has been like this story that probably was going to get told eventually with the fate of everything. But I think like the way that it happened, the journey that it happened, like it's like a Cinderella story, man. It's like it's I don't know. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
No,
like I wouldn't wish anybody to go through what I've been having to go through, but like I do it, like I guess the affirmation is like you felt like you was built for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like a sentiment to some people's business and their journeys where they were just like built for it. Like look at Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was built to be the greatest basketball. Like there's nothing to deny that. You know what I mean?
You said that.
You know what I mean?
Y'all LeBron people out there.
Yeah, well, and equally like if LeBron, like think
LeBron's
about it.
great. Don't get me wrong.
He is great, but if LeBron was 6'2", would he still be great? Probably not.
No, you're right.
So it's like
y'all hear that, everybody? LeBron,
you know,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, go
LeBron,
ahead.
you probably LeBron over here too, aren't you?
But I'm just saying, like, you know, there are certain people that I will say, like, outside of, you know, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but that are just built for what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember one of the best, you know, one of the coolest parts about being in an insurance job is they waste so much money on motivational speakers every year. Like that's like the funnest thing. I'm one of the most self-motivated people, so you know that doesn't bother me to say that. But you know, companies will spend millions and millions of dollars to get their sales team motivated to go sell and make money. That's crazy. But we had a really good speaker one time. You ever seen the movie? This is of course the American. It had Mark Wahlberg in it.
The Lone Survivor?
Lone Survivor. Thank you. Yeah.
Y'all had somebody from there?
So we had Marcus Luttrell. He was the only surviving person from that brigade.
He's talking to insurance people?
He came in and motivated us. And it was hilarious because he was like he was awesome because he wasn't trying to be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome because he literally got up and was like, I have no idea. He literally like laid it out. He's like, I don't know why you guys paid me to be here. Yeah. You guys should be more motivated than anyone to sell for your family and all this. He like laid it out in layman's terms. And then he obviously goes through and talks about, you know, his time in that movie. But one of the most powerful things that I took away from that I'll never forget was two things. Number one was like, he told us this story about how he was built for what he did because, you know, Rangers and people that, you know, go through the Navy SEALs, like, you know, a couple hundred guys will go start at training and they'll finish with 30 graduating. Yep. You know, it's designed to really wean out people. Yep. And so he's talking about that time and that effort and that energy spent to get there. And you would think, after like all those stories, you would be like, all right, dude, you're a badass mother, you know, like we get it. But then he's like, no, I'm wired different. He's like, I met my wife and I asked her to marry me on our second date. And he said, we moved in and I found out she had a kid.
Oh, shoot.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he was just
different.
that wired different. He just, whenever he made a decision, he knew he did all the processes of elimination, made the decision and that was it. And so, you know, he talked about, you know, making decisions that way and being built different. But then another thing, which I really think, like you having time in the arm, being
law enforcement.
Law enforcement was like he said, like one of the questions. This was during Colin Kaepernick's situation, and so one of the questions that was asked was, "Well, what do you think about Colin Kaepernick and like, you know, what he's doing in the NFL?" And you know, you could hear like, you know, someone could fart, you could hear it in the room. Like there's like a huge room. And he's just like, you know what? To be honest, the only thing I got to say about that is if I'm willing to see everyone in my brigade die for the values of others, then you should have no problem explaining yourself to reporters on why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm willing to die for my rights or for everyone else's rights to have, then like you should be willing to die for any cause, any cause. And he said it like this, any fucking cause. Because he's like, if I'm willing to die for it, then you should be too. Mm-hmm. And like I'm giving you all of like that sacrifice. I've seen people sacrifice their whole life for you to have this opportunity to do something with yourself. Yeah. And if you ain't, he literally said, you're not an American that's worth dying for. Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I was like,
like stood up and clapped.
Oh my gosh, man. You just got ramped up because you're like, hell no, that's not me. You know, you want to step up to the game. So for me, it was like, that was like a really big motivating factor where you see people that are like just wired differently, built differently. I mean, I went to K-State, got to be around some of the best, in my opinion, best collegiate coaches, you know, Sean Snyder, Bill Schneider. I mean, Dana Dimmel, some of these coaches were, you know, Dana Dimmel recruited Gronkowski.
Yeah.
And so I was good friends with Gronkowski in college. And so, but when you start thinking about them and you start talking to them and you start learning about their values, their mannerisms, how they respect people, you just realize they're built different.
Yeah. And I think that's what's different about most business owners that are successful is that most of them are built different because there's very few people that will bet on themselves. And I tell people, like, that's the best thing you can do in life is bet on yourself because you know how much you're worth.
And it doesn't have to be huge.
No.
Right? It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be massive. It could be even like, I'm going to go on a walk 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You know, bet on yourself to put yourself in a better situation. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be like, I gotta go run a business or I gotta start a business. You know,
not everybody has
that's a big thing, but creating that, and I think a large part of that too is just like, you know, there's a part of the being built part that also I would say like to go even deeper in is like you're conditioned at a point to be that way, right? You know, you look at athletes like you know, I'll say first like Michael Jordan. And the way that he was and the type of person he was. But if you like even go into his family makeup and his relationship with his father and that competitive drive, it was built like when he was in his young years. Fast forward 30, 40, 50 years later, Mamba, you got Kobe coming in and following after his footsteps, right? And that was his whole sentiment was, I want to be like Mike, you know? And then you have 10, 20 years later, LeBron James, right? Yep. And so there's this era that kind of like happens from conditions, right? From just the conditions of growing up, being told you're not going to make the freshman year basketball team. And then 20, 30, 40 years later, he's the best basketball player to ever play in the game. Like that was a condition that had he not experienced, you and I probably would not know who Michael Jordan is.
Yep.
And so I think there's a huge caveat to like, yeah, you could be built this way, but I think the other thing is like you have to understand your surroundings to know that you might be conditioned to just be built different.
So let's go back to Kinship. So what made you choose Strawberry Hill?
Oh man,
because I love Strawberry Hill. I love it.
So I'll be the first to admit I did not know a lot about Strawberry Hill before we came. When we got invited to sit down with the owners of the business that we are currently at, it was through friends. And it was just that this probably all goes to say like the conditioning of how we got here and where Kinship's at is just pretty crazy because I had told someone 2 or 3, like maybe 2018, like, hey, I really want to own a coffee shop someday. He told his mom. I met his mom one time. And these people, we had opened up my insurance business in 2019 in Mission, and they were one of the business owners down the street that I befriended. And COVID's coming around, and this woman calls me and just says, hey, there's this location that my friends run a shop at, and they're not doing so hot and are looking for somebody to take it over. And it happened to be the address we're at now. When I was putting my business plan together, I knew the business was going to be in Wyandotte County. I knew that for a fact. I did not know it was going to be in Strawberry Hill. So when it all happened, it really just happened organically. And then the nuance of what this place and the history and like all the greatness that is within it came later. Like I didn't come into that until later. Like I remember we had conversations for like 2 or 3 months. Finally got to negotiating the lease and we set up a meeting. We had been basically going back and forth for 2 months without me seeing the space other than pictures. And I came up here an hour before the meeting. I walked around the whole block and I immediately knew this is the place.
Yeah.
I looked inside. We have these garage doors that are like halfway up. And I looked in these garage doors with the little windows that were in them. And I looked inside, and I'm not even kidding, man. I saw the space the way you see it today. Like I literally looked inside and I envisioned what you see today. And that's a sentiment to, I would say, like, God or coincidence or like the all-knowing universe, whatever. Like I just walked into this like awesome opportunity, and I knew it was awesome because of the location. And then what I was wanting to do with it was something that I hadn't seen done in the metro, but also I really didn't know if like Split Log or the other coffee community shops up here had done it. So just doing my research, I was excited because like when we signed the lease and stuff, I was excited because the history that I just found out. And then number two was like, man, some of the people, I met some of the business owners. There used to be a hair salon down the street called Red Velvet. They moved out like a month after, I think they had like relocated, but
yeah.
Like getting to know a lot of the business owners on the street, getting to see the studio, the Clay Studio, Epic Arts, and some of the bar owners. You immediately feel embraced. You immediately feel welcomed. You immediately feel part of the community.
It's definitely a family down here.
It is so cool, man. That's the coolest part that I honestly wasn't expecting, just being a noob coming to Wyandotte and then not being from Wyandotte. Like I know like that was the thing a lot of people told me was like, well, they take care of their own. If you're not part of their own. And for us, man, I mean, still to this day, we get people ask, you from around here? You grew up in the KCK area? And you tell them no, and they're like a little disappointed.
Like,
yeah, they're like somewhat like this. They're like low key disappointed about it. And then you're like, but I love this place. And like, well, yeah, of course, yeah, we're all right.
So what we call you as a transplant.
Yeah,
all right,
and
we'll
that's cool.
accept you.
Yeah, and I'm all right with that. What got you to start? I mean, you knew you were going to be here probably, but what got you to actually? Because this had been vacant. It had been tried to be a couple things before, not a cigar shop. There wasn't even AC installed.
Nope.
So, what made you like find this place or know this was the one?
Like, put it in one account. So I knew I wanted to put it in Strawberry Hill. And I just got lucky finding this place.
Were you looking at other places too, or just
around here?
Yeah.
Yep. And I looked at a couple places, and then it's kind of the same feeling. I walked in here, kind of was like, wow, this is it. Like I already had the layout in my head, the same thing. It's like it's not crazy to say that.
No, but see, that's the sentiment to being built different, right? That is something to be said when some guys are like, yeah, this will do, and they like take the lease and sign it, and then they start spending all the money, and they're not a part of it, and they hire it out, and then that's it, right? And I think a lot of like cigar, bar, coffee shop places sometimes can be fronts for like a law firm, a real estate agent, like an insurance agent. And the fact that you see people like you and I that are like, oh, we give up our other jobs, right? Or our other things to like be a part of this and to like see it grow. Fully invested. You want to see it organically grow. Like that, there's so much to be said about that. But to be honest, that's like the MO of the street. That's like the MO of like the hill. Is it would be weird to see one of the bar owners sell out for nothing. Yeah. And some VC come in and put a rooftop bar on something. It'd be like, and I could see it coming. It's a little scary.
Let's hope not.
Oh my gosh.
Keep Strawberry Hill family oriented.
And
I mean like all of us family.
Literally. I think that's the thing that will be a big interesting story in the next year or two is how things evolve over time with the housing market.
Like I even have this shirt that says Strawberry Hill Mafia that I have made.
Do you really?
Yeah, I got it.
I need one.
But the reason why I made it is because it's like it literally is not like saying there's like a mob here, but like everybody's so close.
Talk to the Croatians. You might get a different story.
I ain't trying to get hit out here, but everyone's so close knit with each other out here. So it's like no matter who you are, it's like if you're part of the Strawberry Hill crew, like they take care of you.
And the coolest part about it, if you've never been, is the culture. Man, you drive in on 5th Street, you get a completely different look than when you drive in on Minnesota, right? But when you're driving in, you'll see like the Czechoslovakians and the Croatians and the Russians and the, and then you'll get more into like the 6th, 7th, and then you're now in Latina and Little Mexico type
and
vibe.
Like Russian Hill, there's Slapses.
And they're all within,
cool
you can walk to these areas. They're that close, like to give people an understanding you can walk to them. I remember when the World Cup was going on, I did not, in Missouri, there's like really like if it's a soccer bar, they're going to show the game. But around here, it was crazy. There was like watch parties at bars and they're putting up flags.
Churches.
Yeah, that was good. The next thing, they're like doing big watch parties at the churches and stuff. And they're not even from America. They're not going to watch the American games. They're going to watch like the Netherlands and the Uruguayans and like all these other countries play. And you're like, I didn't even know we had fans in this area. Yeah. And they love it.
So do you still come to work loving it every day?
Yes. I think every day is going to be a different challenge. I think that's what we all kind of eventually, what we would like to admit is we got into it that way because it's not the mundane. It's not the same thing all the time. We like the challenge. So it is always equally challenging. I will say that like, let me think of what's not fun. I think, and you could probably carry some sentiment to a lot of this too, when someone comes in and goes, wow, this is Black owned, or, or the lack of knowledge, like, or they say like, we get people that are not from the area that come into KCK and they have like this perception of negativity around KCK. And then they say something like, wow, there's a Bushi cigar shop in KCK. How nice. And you're like,
it's like, yeah,
screw you. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Crime dot.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's not why.
There you go. Yep. Right. So like that part isn't the fun part. That part isn't, and it's daily. It's, I mean, for as many people as we see per day, it's daily that happens. And I think like, I wasn't prepared for that when I was getting started to have like the nuances of people coming in and like patronizing the business, to like the amount of like social awareness, I guess, that people don't have. Like a guy came in this morning and was like, so you were like gonna lose your building a few months ago. Is that like, I was like, well, that's like so long ago, like, type thing. And why would that be past that? Why would that be the first thing you would want to bring up too? Like, hey, Mike, I heard you might be losing your business. Can I get a cigar? You're like, geez, yeah, man. Let me give you one and spit on. No, I'm kidding. We don't do that, Kinship. But that's the thing. Like you have. I would say like for more, it's like navigating. You're navigating through social cues that people don't pick up on, and you don't want to beat them over the head with what they don't know, but you want to kill them with kindness.
Oh yeah,
over what you're bringing to them. You know what I mean? So I would say like, yes, it is fun to still come to work, but yes, there are challenges. Some of those challenges are more fun to tackle than not. I think when it's not fun or the challenges don't become fun, I hope to God my team is ready to step up because that'll be what will happen. We do have like a robust staff, and that's something that has been like a lot of curating, a lot of training. All of the people are new to coffee, and that's exciting. It not to make listeners think we don't know what we're doing. These people, I'm over top of them, because I want them to understand that there's maybe. Well, in the Metro, there's maybe one 15-year-old Black girl that I know that can make really great coffee, and that's Kanini Ali, and she goes to Sumner High. So there's all these nuances of things that you're clocking in at 24 years old as a barista who's Black, and you might be less than 10 in the country that is able to do that today. And so when you start breaking that down to them to understand, remember you said you didn't have any experience, it's because you weren't going to get a real shot. So now that we got this opportunity, let's make the most of it. So we teach everyone everything as best as we can. And I'm on them because I want them to carry pride in what they're having. And then also because I know what they're going to be up against. I know there's going to be someone that's going to come in and go, well, I'm used to Starbucks. Can you guys do it like Starbucks? And you're like, yes, we're better than Starbucks. Let's show you how, you know? So there's those sentiments, but I think, having a team or having that ability to extend yourself, for me, this going into our 2 years, man, that's like pivotal because, you know, you're serving, you know, we'll serve maybe 1,000 people a week. And I can't begin to tell you, Mike, how you're providing food for 5 wraps, 3 deli sandwiches, and all the coffee that you could possibly have, whether it's cold brew or even our scratch made chai or espresso shots or drip coffee or what have you. So, you know, it's a lot of work. I'm saying I don't think other people could feed 1,000 people every single week and keep their sanity. But if and I'm saying I could not do it without my team. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying if it got to the point where, you know, 1,000 turns to 2,000, all I'm doing now instead of serving customers is now I'm just making food and I have people to serve the customers.
So before we wrap this up, this will be, I guess, last question here. I always ask this. So now that you own a business, going through a lot of ups and downs, I mean, you still got a ways away. You still got a lot of big future left. What would you tell somebody getting into not even the coffee world, but just open up a business? What advice would you give them that you went through that you could kind of tell them to help navigate through their journey? Except don't sign the lease at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, don't put that off. Get that done right away. You know, I think that's a sentiment though to like everything in life. You know, you finish your plate. You know, do you put it in the sink or do you clean it off and put it in the dishwasher? You know, the sentiment is always go ahead and put it off in the dishwasher because, you know, whatever comes next in the sink, that plate may not be needed there. So I think for me with that note is, I would say like 3 things. Number 1, perfection is the enemy. It's actually the enemy. Your need to know everything or your need to understand everything, honestly, at the get start phase is minute. Most times when you're getting started, the most important part of getting started is just getting started. Lots of people, I would say like crazy stat, like maybe 90 to 95% of people who say they're going to do something and don't do it probably don't do it because they just been thinking and they never got started. So go ahead and get started. You heard how Mike and I got started, but go ahead and get started on something in that idea or that thought process. I don't know this. I need to know that. No, you don't need to know that. I'm just saying you got to get started. You got to get going, whatever that is. If that means like just a quick story, like we got passed by a health inspection while we were under construction. So we were still like 90% done of our construction. The health inspector came by and approved us. I did not have my business Wyandotte County license. And the health inspector said we could open. So now I'm like, okay, in a perfect world, I'd call the business office. I'd pay, I think it's like a $40 application fee. And I get my application and we would be open and you know how fast they work. That might be a little bit of time. And we are we need to be open like yesterday, you know what I mean? With bills coming in. And so I called I could totally just sit there and call the city and just be like, hey, could I open? And stuff like that. And they may say, yeah, it'd take a couple weeks, 10 days. And I could be like, oh, okay, well, you know, that's all I need to know. Thanks. Right. You know, and send them the application. No, like I called them and said, I just got approved from the health department. I want to open tomorrow. I don't have my application. I don't have the money for the application, but when I make the money tomorrow, I will pay that application fee ASAP. And she said, okay, that's cool. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear anything. You can pay the application. We'll process it and we'll have it to you Monday. And they let me open just like that. And the only thing they said was, you can't let anybody inside your building. I said, okay, we'll lock the doors. We'll serve out the garage doors.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We did that for a month. And so we had to go. We didn't have the choice to like be perfect and have all the walls painted and have the bar ready for chairs. And no, we just had to go, because if we didn't, you know, we had our utility bill due and we had rent coming up due. So I don't know how we would still be here today if I didn't do that. So number one, get started. Perfectionism is the enemy. Number three, this is a really important one. Actually, this is number two. Number two is the path of least resistance always wins. And so for me, like getting started, I was like, oh man, I want to do all this work. I want to do all this stuff. And then I kept thinking like, wait, like, this is going to cost so much money. It's going to take so much energy, so much time. This is really a project. TJ, you don't have time to do a project. You've got to go. So for me, it was like, how do I go with the path of least resistance? How can I just get open like I was doing with the health department? I remember we didn't have the espresso machine. Path of least resistance. Do we not open? Do we not promote that we do coffee? Yes, we promote we do coffee. We do drip coffee. So what do? Drip coffee. We didn't have our really fancy Fetco 2-tower coffee drip machine.
You're speaking like Latin to me now.
Yeah, I know. But we just had a Mr. Coffee machine that we got at Walmart. And that was good for 6 months. That made us $35,000. That was all we needed for the 6 months. And 6 months later, my $18,000 espresso machine showed up. So then we could change that story. But path of least resistance always wins when you're getting started, because you may not have the money, you may not have the people, you may not have the energy. So you have to find a way to like skim and trim to get right to the nutrients, get right to the substance. The third thing, man, and you can attest to this, in everything you do, marketing, being open, from open to close, you know, whether it's like certain cigars that people love, consistency is key. Is key. I mean, with marketing, I've seen you have events here and there's like a line out the door, you know, where you've had like every seat full because you've had like music and stuff going on. Like, I see that, but I know that didn't start with the event post that you posted of that event. Yeah. That was like 6 months ago when you were posting about all your events going on. And there was that momentum that happened because you were consistent with it. And it's like, that is so important in any business, in any route of life. If you want to get stronger, if you want to get more smart, you want to get faster, you want to actually date someone and get married, like, you're going to have to consistently put yourself out in those ways to get that knowledge or that expertise or get better. Right. And so for me, consistency looked like this. I have opened the store all but 2 days since we've been open. I know that sounds crazy, but to be honest, like, I love that stat. I love that I get to say that. I know there is not any other coffee shop owner in the metro that can physically look at me in the eyes and tell me they've opened every day since they opened. I can. And I wouldn't say that to toot my own horn, but I would say that's the level of you know, commitment and consistency that I've had to make with myself to be up at a specific time, to be at a place at a specific time, so I can serve the people that come through.
I can't even say that. I've only been open for 8 months.
But it's like, but there's other things a part of your journey and in everyone's life, everyone's journey, everyone's title. You know, with COVID happened, I remember like your consistency and routine got thrown off, right? Out the window. But maybe there was a place you went to every Tuesday for lunch, or you had like a business meeting. I was in a business meeting at a time where we were all virtual every Thursday from 8 to 10:30. And I remember like everybody in this business group, all their people around them and their other small groups stopped having meetings. Stopped having meetings, stopped doing routine stuff. They got out of this like COVID lackadaisical approach. And everyone in this groups and their business all blew up. And it was only because, and I remember that they're all like, after a year, we kind of looked at how much money we all sent each other and raised and profited. And we were all like, like, how does that happen? How does this? And it was because I looked at everybody and said, what was the most consistent thing on your calendar? And they said, our meetings. Our meetings were the most consistent thing on our calendar over the last 18 months. And that was through COVID. And everybody's business blew up during COVID. And that was just a steady, just to everyone's consistency. Everybody showing up, plugging in, and, hitting play. And I think that's a huge sentiment to anyone getting started is you got to be consistent, man. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where you don't want to be there. Trust me, I've had those days. I've had days when I showed up and I was like 20 minutes late. Someone was waiting for me to get their drink. I've had those days too. So but I still showed up.
Yep.
That consistency was still there. You have these events that go on here, and maybe you have like a down week where you're like, I need to actually take time for myself and be with my family and everything like that. When you come back to that seat, when you're sitting in that chair to make that post on that next event, it gets a little harder because you've been out of the chair for a while. And that's all that is. It's that consistency, is that momentum, is that, in football, one of my coaches said, momentum's a bitch. You can't always fight
hard
that.
It's hard.
Hard. It's hard to keep it. But having it, man, when you have it, when you're consistent and you've gotten started, and you may not know everything or how to get all the answers, but I trust you while you in it, man, you figure out everything while you in it. Some of the stuff now, like Mike, you could probably say this, you never would have learned if you were like in it right now.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like you could be where you were last year, not having this and doing whatever, and with your friends, drinking buddies, talking about all the things you would like to do.
I wish I could do this.
I wish I would like to. But you went out. You didn't. I'm guarantee you didn't have all the answers because you've learned more since. Right? You've been consistent with it, and man, I'm sure you've had to do some process of least resistance. We got to have this. I got to have this cigar here. I'll go ahead and pay that next day shipping because I got a big group coming in tomorrow. It's got to be here. Like those are the path of least resistant choices that, as a business owner, whether it sucks or you enjoy it, it's like, that's just what it is. That's just part of being a business. So stay consistent. You don't got to know everything. And perfectionism is your enemy.
I like those.
Is your enemy.
Well, my friend, it has been a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
It's good to have you on, man.
Oh, I'm spilling his drink.
Sorry, ain't much in there. So we got to plug your shop, man. Got to tell people about it. Where's it at?
Where do you find it?
Where do you open?
Yeah, so we are open at Kinship. We are located at 719 North 6th Street. It is next to the tallest building structure in KCK. I say that like it's such a big deal. It's the mayor's office. We are literally across the street from the mayor's office and the health department for the county. We are open Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30. And then Saturday, we are open from 8 to 2:30. On Saturday, we typically have from 10 to 2 pop-ups, vendors, music, food.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that's really just like the highlight, more people down the street in our culture in the metro, and I think that's a real big testament to just people coming in and wanting to see that. We get a lot of people not from the Strawberry Hill, not from KCK coming in on a Saturday. Like we're from Brookside, we're from Olathe, and you're like, welcome, and it's a lot of times it's their first time in Strawberry Hill, which is always really cool.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, good. So everybody go out, try you some Kinship Cafe, get some coffee, get a cinnamon delight. That's my favorite. So if you like something good,
it's Mike's jam.
Like a Mike's favorite, that's going to have it on their little menu.
It's a lot of people's
that
favorite.
would be the only thing that Mike's favorite because I don't really drink coffee. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Next week we have Jen. She works for the Royals and the Chiefs, so that'll be a good listen. And like I said, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. Strawberry Hill Podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next week.
Keep it up.
Goodbye, everybody.